Hi, I'm Heather Hawker, President and CEO of the Lubbock Symphony Orchestra, and this is Clef Notes. I'm excited to introduce you to our musicians, guest artists, and patrons who for 80 years have developed a love of music through your Lubbock Symphony here on the South Plains. In today's episode, you'll meet Gary Hudson. Gary is the Lubbock Symphony Orchestra, Stacy and Robert Coleman Family Endowed Trumpet Principal, as well as the Lubbock Symphony Personnel Director. During the day, Gary is the Department Chair of Fine Arts and Professor of Music at South Plains College. Gary will be one of two trumpeters performing in the March Chamber concert titled Appalachian Spring, featuring selections by Copland, Bach, Manfredini, Handel, and Vivaldi on Saturday, March 14th in the Crickets Theater at the Buddy Holly Hall of Performing Arts and Sciences beginning at 7:30 p.m. Hi, Gary. Thank you for joining me on Cliff Notes.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Gary, I need to share with the audience that we've known each other for a really long time. Gary and I were both fortunate to grow up in the suburbs of Houston in the Spring School District. Spring ISD in the 80s and 90s had a superior fine arts program, winning 5 UIL 5A state marching band competitions. Take us back, Gary, to 5th grade and how you decided that you would play the trumpet.
You know, I wish there was a really great moment where the trumpet fell from the sky and it was just meant to be. But I have a brother who's 4 years older than I am, and he had gone into band originally, and he had been selected or asked to play trumpet and very quickly switched to euphonium. And so we had a cornet at the house. And when it was my time, my parents said, "That's great. Here's what you're going to play." That's how it happened. If it had been another instrument, I might be a saxophonist or a trombonist or something else.
A percussionist?
Probably not.
Probably not? Okay. Okay. Well, there you go. Did you fall in love with the trumpet at that point once you got to 6th grade? I mean, talk about how that evolved.
It turned into something that felt like you could invest in and had maybe a little bit of a talent for, but it was something that definitely took a lot of hard work, even at that age. But yeah, it became something that I could identify with beyond other things, schoolwork, and I wasn't incredibly athletic. So it was the thing, like many things with kids, it becomes your thing. And that became my thing throughout middle school. And then high school, again, with the education that we received, which was a fantastic one, and the experiences that we had, it just became more and more how I identified as a musician and as a trumpet player.
We were both really lucky to work with the likes of Charlotte Royal, Bill Watson, and a Texas legend in my book, Phil Geiger. They cared about us, but truly demanded excellence. Tell me about your experiences during these years, and maybe even a story or two about this time of why you decided to pursue being a professional musician. First, you went to undergrad at U of H and then came out to Lubbock to Texas Tech for your master's in DMA.
So back in that time, I think it was probably around my junior year where I had decided that actually it wasn't the idea of being a performer, but a teacher. Like you said, we had great examples with Charlotte and Bill and Phil, and they're legends in Texas. They're master educators, and they built along really under the leadership of Richard Crane, who is a master teacher and administrator, the dynasty from the 80s and the 90s in the band world. And so, on that one side, we had that amazing music education. We were held to a very high standard. We were expected to work hard. But, I think we had fun too, because I don't think we would have stuck with it that long. But in those days, I really saw what they were doing and come into my mind that I wanted to be a teacher. And when I got to college, I was very fortunate to study with Jim Austin, who was at that time, trumpet professor and retired principal of the Houston Symphony. And he invested in all of his students, not just his performance majors, but he treated his education majors exactly the same way and had the same expectations. And so as I was growing as a musician, started getting that in my head to, maybe I could be a performer as well. And when I graduated, I started working in Houston, Cypress Fairbanks, which is just on the north side, teaching middle school. And I'd gotten to know Will Strider at Texas Tech. And we sort of connected, and he would bug me once in a while. When are you going to come up to Lubbock and, do a master's with me? I'm like, we'll see. And things changed, and it was sort of like, well, that sounds like a good idea. I'll do that before I get too settled. And then other doors opened, and then here I am.
Wow. And of course, private lessons for these students, that is definitely something we both got to take advantage of. It was almost mandatory that you not only had your classroom experience, but then you spent 30 minutes a week or an hour a week with a private instructor. And are you still doing private lessons for various students?
Not as much with public school students, just because of the demands of my time with my job all day. But, with the students at the college is really where I'm invested right now.
You trained with Will Strider. You mentioned Will just a minute ago. How did you select Texas Tech? I mean, of course, Will was recruiting you, but why did you decide to come to Lubbock?
It was very specifically for Will. He was a previous generation Houston student before and he had come back when I was starting my undergrad to start a doctorate with Mr. Austin. And so we got to know each other there, and he would work with us a little bit on the side or in sectionals with ensembles. And so I got to know him, and he got to know me. And when I was working my first job, like I said, he would bug me once in a while. Oh, when are you going to come up to Lubbock? And, oh, no, I'm working, I'm making money. And things changed, and I decided, this would be a good opportunity. And so I knew that Will was a solid musician and a great player, but I knew that he was a very creative teacher. That was really the main thing. That was the only reason that I came to Texas Tech, was for Will Strider. And it changed my life. He's our former principal in the orchestra and, retired professor there. But I would not be doing what I'm doing without his work and his influence.
And for many years, I know Will would travel from Lubbock back to Houston to play with the Houston Ballet for a number of seasons. So,
and that always gave me the opportunity to just step up into the principal role over those years and sort of, work on that. It's very different, sitting in that seat versus sitting in the second seat or the third seat. It's a different job. And so I also appreciated those opportunities to step up and like, okay, now you're in the driver's seat, as it were.
And now you are in the driver's seat
I've got
as
the keys
principal.
to the orchestra.
You do, literally and figuratively. We really could not do what we do at the Lubbock Symphony without Gary's leadership as our personnel director. Let's shift gears and discuss the Lubbock Chamber Orchestra concert that will be held on Saturday, March 14th in the Crickets Theater at the Buddy Holly Hall of Performing Arts and Sciences. We will have a trumpet concerto for two trumpets in both the Manfredini and the Vivaldi selections. Tell the audience about these two pieces.
So these two works, one is very famous. It's one of the standards in our world as a trumpet player, but the Manfredini is a little obscure. He's not a very well-known composer. I was reading an article the other day which sort of labeled him as run-of-the-mill. And that's okay. He did not write a great deal of music that we have, whereas, of course, Vivaldi is, concertos is one of his, things in his pocket with over 500 examples. And so I think you'll see that in the two pieces. The Manfredini is a little subdued. Okay. It's very light, whereas the Vivaldi is very involved and a bit more virtuosic. So I've been sort of thinking about it as, the Manfredini will be the nice appetizer, and then the Vivaldi is going to be the main course for us.
I'm excited about the Vivaldi piece. I'll just be honest. The piece was written, we think, around the 1720s. We're not sure about this exactly, but the piece was really not discovered till the 1950s. Are you surprised it took so long to find this piece? And now why the popularity 70 plus almost 80 years later?
I think it's not surprising. You think about music from that generation, and it was put in a drawer, it was set aside, it got stuck in a pile with other music, and then just disappeared. I was reading an article last night about a work by Mozart that has been recently discovered and literally in a library, stuck in a folio, and now they think that they found something from 13-year-old Mozart. It's not a huge deal, but I mean, it's one of those things. And when it came to light, it was sort of around the time period where a gentleman named Maurice Andre was sort of ascending in the 60s and the 70s, who really made the trumpet a soloist instrument. Prior to that, we're looked at as, orchestral musicians. Andre turned it into a soloist instrument, and then started really, all these pieces started coming to light. He was also looking for repertoire to play. As you know, the trumpet, we don't have a lot of soloistic concerto works prior to the 20th century. There's a handful in the classical period, not many in the Baroque period. Now we have great ones like the Bach Brandenburg II or Telemann's Concerto or the Vivaldi that we're playing next week. So there was a lot of stealing,
Sure.
playing Baroque oboe works and flute works. But, once with the rise of that personality in Andre and this kind of search for music, when that piece discovered, I think it became immediate because it was such a novelty. Here's this Baroque work by Vivaldi, the great, concerto composer, and it's for two trumpets. And then sort of the novelty that the audience will see next week of, as modern performers playing piccolo trumpets, which the audience is always sort of taken by. Right. It's not in their daily experience. If they've come to the Messiah with Lubbock Chorale or Lubbock Symphony, they'll know, okay, that's what that is. But it's always sort of this, like I said, novelty when you walk out on stage with a piccolo and they're just kind of, ooh, that's so cute. And it's like, well, yeah. It is, but it's a little beast too.
It is, and it sounds beautifully. So of the three movements, which one is your favorite and what should we look for in the Vivaldi?
Well, I really like the second movement because I get to rest. Otherwise, though,
Gary.
Trust me. But no, it's hard to say because they're both just so brilliant, and they really feature the instrument in a way that you don't really see in the orchestral side many times with that. And the sort of equality in the movements that's given to both trumpet players. You have that, in an orchestral setting, you have that hierarchy. Here's the first trumpet playing, and then this is second trumpet sort of supporting. And you're going to hear a lot of back and forth between the two of us. And Joe's a fantastic player. We've played together for decades, and we don't even communicate anymore. We know how to play with each other, and it just happens. And we'll keep our fingers crossed that we keep it together this week.
Oh, I guarantee you will. You complement each other beautifully. Share with the audience what you do as the personnel manager. This is a big job, and you do this with efficiency and calmness. How did you develop those skills?
Well, the calmness is a facade. So, the inside is always sort of on the edge. But the primary role is one, to make sure that every concert is fully staffed and that all the musicians' seats are filled. And that can always be a challenge as repertoire changes. And you're looking at a Mozart-sized orchestra one time and then a Mahler-sized orchestra the next time. And so it's the contracting end and taking care of that, as well as being the conduit of information, both from musician to management, from management to musician, and music director to musician, and back and forth. You have to be the sort of the facilitator. Sometimes you have to be the conflict resolver, as between musicians or between. And so it requires a lot of different skills that you may not have immediately, but you try to work a little bit on. And as a teacher, I've kind of worked on those skills, with students and with other faculty, and to be able to sort of live in that world and help people do the best job they can, keep things a little tamped down when emotions get high. Like I said, make sure that everybody has what they need to perform well and for the audience to have an elevated experience.
We couldn't do it without you. And Gary, thanks for joining me today. And thank you for all you do for Lubbock and our community. A special thank you to our audience for listening to Classical 105.7 on behalf of your Lubbock Symphony and our Lubbock Symphony Chamber Orchestra. Please know that tickets are limited for the March 14th concert. I do want to remind our listeners to make plans to join us for Masterworks 4, Echoes of the New World, featuring a side-by-side concert of the Lubbock Symphony Orchestra and the Lubbock Youth Orchestras. Our presenting sponsor for this concert is Texas Tech University on Saturday, March 28th at 7:30 p.m. at the Buddy Holly Hall of Performing Arts and Sciences. For our season subscribers, this is a date change. Masterworks 4 will be Saturday, March 28th. You can find the Lubbock Symphony on social media, and to purchase tickets, visit our website at lubbocksymphony.org. And be sure to download the Classical 105.7 app so you never miss an episode of Clef Notes. Make it a great day.